Hello everyone and welcome back to another card video. Today this is one of the favorite cards that I made for this series, so I'm really excited to share it. I'm starting with an Avery Elle stamp set and I chose one of the little snowflakes, and then I have a piece of watercolor cardstock that I'm just using my powder tool to go over so that it cuts down on any static electricity so that I don't get stray embossing powder pieces on there. I'm inking up my stamp with the Versamark ink so that I can heat emboss these snowflakes on the background. I'm just randomly stamping these all over. I don't really have a rhyme or a reason. I just want to make sure that the background is covered with snowflakes. And once I feel like I get enough snowflakes stamped on there, I'm going to put some embossing powder. So I just have a piece of white computer paper that I like to do this on so that I can funnel it back in. I am using the Hero Arts white embossing powder, and then I heated that with my heat tool to melt all of that embossing powder. So I'm using the Blue Ribbon Distress ink, and I found that I love this color as a background for like a winter scene or a night scene. So I am just inking up my round foam blending tool and then blending this color all over the background. Now it looks a little bit splotchy right now, but I promise it will blend out. I've had a lot of people ask me on how I can get my distress inks to blend so well. One of the things is that it blends a lot better on watercolor cardstock. So if you're having trouble, I would suggest getting some watercolor cardstock, and I use the distressed watercolor cardstock. I find that it works best. The other thing is if you're using regular white cardstock, make sure that you have plenty of ink on your foam blending tool. The more worn that your blending tool is, the easier it's going to be for it to blend, and the more ink you have on there, the better it's going to blend. The other thing is to just keep blending. You really have to just keep blending those colors together and adding more ink. Build that ink up on your cardstock and it will even out. So next I'm adding some Faded Jeans Distress ink on to around the edges. And then I will add one darker color with the Chip Sapphire. And that one is just a little bit less along the edges. I just really want to kind of darken those edges up. And you can see kind of how well those colors have already blended together just by keep adding the color and blending them out. Now to get that middle color to be a little bit darker and just to blend all of those three colors that I added on there a little bit better, I'm going to go back in with the blue ribbon and ink up the entire thing once again. That's just going to bring out that color, and it's going to blend all of them a lot better than they already are. Then I'm going to take some water and squirt this into my hand so that I can flick drops onto this piece. And because Distress ink reacts with water, I'll be able to pick up some of this color where those water droplets are. So I'm just going to let it sit for a few seconds, and then I'll go ahead and take my microfiber cloth and just place it over that to pick up all of that water. And it's going to pick some of that ink up with it. You can see how cool that looks in the background. It just adds a little bit more texture to it. So I wanted a few more drops at the top, so I'm just going to do the exact same thing once again. I'm going to let this sit for even longer just to see if I can get some more color variation. And then I'm going to pick up the water with my cloth. And then you can see even more droplets up there. So I wanted some white splatter. I didn't have a spray mist or anything like that, so I had some acrylic paint that was extremely old because it was stuck in the bottom of the bottle. So I tried to get out as much as I could, and I'm just going to wet it down with some water. So you can use any white paint for this, just acrylic paint. You can see I have a little bit on my mat. I don't need very much because I'm not going to add very much to my card, but I'm just taking some water just to get that so it's not so firm on there because it's really dried out. And then I'm going to just tap on my paintbrush so that I can flick some white splatters all over my background. It just adds some even more texture and dimension to the background. I really love the way that this turned out, and I would love to add my every background to look like this on my cards, but I don't think you guys would want to see that every time. So I'm taking this Avery Elle stamp set, and I am choosing the stamp where they're sledding, so it's a little bear and a bunny on a toboggan. And I'm inking this up with my Tuxedo Black Memento ink, and I'm going to stamp this on a piece of Coordination's 110-pound cardstock. And now I can go ahead and color this in with my Copic markers. So I'm starting by coloring the sled in with the E35. And then I'll add a little bit of shading with the E37. And then I'm going to add a little bit darker color with the E39. And then I'm going to go back in and blend those with the E35. For the bunny, I'm going to make it gray, so I'm using the W1. And then add a little bit of shading with the W3. And then I'm going to go one shade darker with the W5, and then I can blend those together with the W1. So for the bear, I'm coloring him in with the E23. I wanted a little bit different shade of brown since the toboggan is brown as well. And then my darker color I'm using is the E25. I'm then going to go back in and blend those colors with the E23. And then I'm going to color the scarf in with the R29 and then do a little bit of shading with the R39. And then I'll just go back in with my R29 and blend that out a little bit. For the goggle strap, I used the black 100, and then for the bear's tummy, I'm using the E21. I then went ahead and fussy cut this image out. I left the white border around the edge. So next I'm going to stamp my sentiment. I cut this piece of snow. I just freehanded the curved line so that it looks like a hill of snow. So I'm going to mount my stamp on my clear acrylic block and then ink that up with the Tuxedo Black Memento ink. So I went ahead and stamped that down. I also cut a larger hill that I'm going to use to go behind the smaller one with the sentiment. So I'll go ahead and adhere that one down to my snowy background first. And then I'll put some adhesive on the back of the sentiment one and then adhere that down as well. I'm then going to put some adhesive on the back of my watercolor cardstock, and then I can adhere that down to my white A2 size card base. Alrighty, now is the fun part. I get to add some sparkly glitter to those snowy hills. So I'm going to be using some dry distress glitter. It's the Clear Rock Candy, and I have this big jar of it. You are definitely going to want to pick some of this up for your holiday cards because it makes it super sparkly and fun. So I am taking my Tombow Mono Multi-Glue and just going along the edge of that snow hill, and then I'm also adding like little squiggly lines all the way down and kind of smearing that so that I can add my glitter to that. Then I'll go ahead and just dump my glitter over that so that it adheres down to the glue. You want to be careful when you're working with this glitter because it does tend to stick everywhere, so you'd want to have a cloth or something to clean that up, and just be careful so you don't spill the container. And then I'm going to take my May Arts Natural Twine, and I'm just going to tie a bow around the top part of my card. So I just cut it long enough so that there would be excess, because I want it to hang a little bit lower on this card since there is so much space in that top part. So I'll first tie the knot because that always makes tying the bow a little bit easier. And then once I get it situated, I'll trim off the excess. And then to adhere down my sledding bear and rabbit, I'm adding some 3D foam squares from Best Creation to the back of it. I have three large ones and one small one. So I can go ahead and set those on the hill so it looks like they are sledding down it. And then I'm going to add a little bit of glossy accents to the bear's goggles. That way it makes them look a little bit more realistic. Alright, and then that is my finished card for today, so I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and will try making your own snowy background with Distress inks and a little bit of white paint. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already, because you are not going to want to miss another one of my holiday card series of videos. I'll see you back here next time. Bye!